You're listening to the Leadership Blend Podcast.
I'm ready.
On the Thinking Out Loud Network. Check out the Thinking Out Loud Network at thinkingoutloudnetwork.com.
All right, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my correspondent,
Simone Sheree.
All right. So a weekend full of surprises and doppelgangers. I think that's a word. I just felt that in my spirit. I just want to use that word. But we need to get right on into it. So, Simone, what we got?
So we're going to talk about the coronavirus. There have been updates. There's the second reported death in the United States, and more information about how you can protect yourself. I think this is getting increasingly alarming. Delta and American Airlines have canceled travel to certain places overseas. Increasingly, companies are canceling conferences and conventions. So I do think we should kind of touch on that, and then we'll, of course, get into 2020. And the Democratic presidential election race and why that's so significant and what the developments were coming out of South Carolina. And because tomorrow is Super Tuesday. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Georgia and what the polls are saying that Georgia may look like for Democrats. And then we're going to spend some time talking about probation and parole reform and kind of give people an idea about what activism looks like in the state of Georgia and what I do outside of when I'm not here. So
Yeah, pretty much.
it should be a good day.
All right. So let's get on into it then. This coronavirus.
Yes. So the coronavirus is very serious. Most people know that, but I think it bears repeating. The second person has died in the United States of the coronavirus. This was a patient who was living in a skilled nursing facility outside of Seattle in the city of Kirkland. So there have been 14 confirmed cases in the United States. They span across the country. There's New York, California, Illinois, Rhode Island. But now this is in Washington State, and Washington State apparently says that this case has spread beyond just this nursing facility. There are students at the local community college who have been testing positive for the coronavirus as well. And it seems like because some of these patients are over 70, this is why there was the second death. The first death was technically in his 50s, but this gentleman was in his 70s. He had underlying health conditions. Within that specific nursing facility, which is under quarantine, by the way, a lot of the patients who are over 70 or who have other health conditions have tested positive for that coronavirus. And there's just been other cases across Washington State. As of today, it seems like the younger you are, the healthier you are, the safer you may be. But there's definitely a lot of folks who've just not gone to hospitals, not gotten tested. So the CDC is essentially going to start giving hospitals go ahead to test folks for coronavirus and giving them more resources now. Because for some young, healthy people, it may just look like cold symptoms. But right now, internationally, over 3,000 people have died from corona. So it is very, very serious. And more information has come out recently about masks and kind of what have kind of some of the stuff that you've heard about the virus and protection, or have you not heard that much?
I've heard a lot of foolishness. Like I've heard that, that melanin is immune to. You didn't see that? Oh yeah, that black folks are immune to the coronavirus. Something about melanin in the skin.
Who was the source of this?
Now that's why you asked what I heard. You didn't ask me what you didn't ask me what I actually researched. Okay. What I heard was that African Americans are protected in essence because of the melanin in our skin against the coronavirus. That's what I heard. That is not confirmed. I heard that. I also heard that the mask does not work. That people need to stop buying masks. That does not work. That's about it. Again, honestly, it's the bigger debate was the fact that Trump has placed Pence in charge of this whole epidemic. And everybody has an issue with Pence because apparently when he was mayor or governor, which I think was mayor. Governor. When he was governor, that his state, there was an HIV breakout in a smaller state in a smaller county in his state. And he didn't handle it well. So that's there was a lot of conversations about that. And it was like, well, why you put him in charge of epidemic? We don't even understand. And apparently the guy that actually is a spokesman, and I need to get this article, so I'm just talking off my head. The guy that's a spokesman has been banned from talking directly to the public. He has to go through Pence. That's a problem for me when Pence don't know what he's talking about. So
I understand. And that, to be fair, that was a few decades ago. A few now. But I think, so part of what I've heard from health officials, and this is NPR reporting, is that all of the typical advice that we get about flu season does apply to this. Like, be very hygienic, wash your hands, don't touch your face, basic things like that. The thing about the mask that I think became an issue is twofold. Some people are worried about the mask in the sense that folks say it's not all-encompassing. Like if this is an airborne disease, we do have eyes. You can contract pink eye. You can contract all kinds of diseases through your eyes, through the membranes of your eyes. Yeah. So people have said things like, well, a mask isn't going to help you. It's just covering your nose and your mouth. But I also heard, and this is NPR reporting this morning, that they're worried too many people will buy masks and that they won't be there for doctors and nurses who need them most. Most folks who have been positively testing for this virus are folks who are either in a healthcare facility, or in this case, a nursing care facility, working around that, medical professionals. So there was a warning, sort of a soft warning put out this morning that, let's not take all the masks off the shelves as, civilians, and there's none left then for healthcare workers who really need them.
I mean, I suppose, but if it actually can help, then don't tell me not to wear a mask if it can actually help.
Right. That's the thing about it. So, but there has been, or at least there will be officially, a travel ban in Italy. That's the White House has already been in talks about that because known cases have gone up 50% in the last 24 hours in Italy.
Yeah, I did see that. They have some real issues.
Mm-hmm. Delta and American have suspended flights for that exact reason. And again, lots of corporations have canceled conferences and things like that where there's travel that's to be expected. That one area in Washington, this is outside of Seattle, there's a quarantine on that facility. There's a quarantine in the community college and across about 6 city blocks. So it looks like when this happens, just like when it happened with the measles, you end up under quarantine. Nobody wants to end up under quarantine, especially if you think that you may be a healthy person in an area in which other people are not healthy. You want to get out. So we definitely want to do what we can to understand what this is. My only concern, or I guess what sucks, is that we just don't know what it is.
Well, and that's the problem.
So there's all this like general advice, like stay healthy and
what does that mean?
Like wash your hands, which people should just do anyway. But wash your hands. Don't somebody asked a question earlier today, and this was again over NPR, saying, I've got somebody visiting me, and they've spent time in Asia. Should I cancel my visit? Like, this is a friend of mine. Should I just cancel my visit? I kind of jokingly said, hey, let's wait a couple weeks before you come. But she's like, no, I'm kind of worried about it. And they were essentially saying, yeah, maybe you should consider, but just huge groups of people around which international travel may have occurred. Wait, have you gone anywhere recently? Ricardo, have you gone anywhere recently? Has anybody gone anywhere before as I sit in this room right now?
No, and I'm darn sure not I'll do it now.
Yeah.
So, okay. But I mean, the places that are on that list, I wouldn't go. They're not on my bucket list of visiting places
like
anyway.
Italy every other week.
Yeah, I'm kind of good. I don't have any plans to go to certain places. But like I said, the problem with this is, you keep giving us this general information, and I'm not gonna live my life in fear. So you telling me that a mask doesn't work, and then I'm looking on the bottom of the back of my Lysol can, it's got Corona stuff on it. Like, I'm not living in fear. And honestly, I feel like that's what we're doing now. I feel like we're living in fear because every time we turn around, there's some new epidemic. And I keep saying this. Last year was the measles, which we never had to worry about. Now it's the coronavirus. Yeah. People actually think that the coronavirus is caused by drinking Coronas. People actually think that. And I can't say that they're crazy because you can't tell me what it is. So is it caused by me drinking Corona? I think you can say that
they're crazy. I think you can say that.
No.
I'm sure we consume much more Corona here than they do in Asia, which was the original origin of at least the first couple of cases of the coronavirus.
I'm just saying that until you can give me some definitive answers, this is crap. And I'm not living my life in fear. So there you have it.
What do you think they can do about the spread of misinformation? I'm concerned about what you said about melanin. I'm concerned about what you're now saying about beer. Like, this is part of the reason why these social media companies end up under so much scrutiny is because they feel like they have to just stomp out all this misinformation. How do we stop people from scaring other people?
Don't let people fill the gap. Because when you don't give information, people are going to combine what they think they know.
Do a better job of getting it out there.
Isn't that the job of the CDC?
It is, except
so we don't have.
I think in this case, all they're saying is we don't know how big it could be. Just prepare for how big it could be. Literally, that's what they're literally saying. There was a representative released a statement over the weekend saying something similar to, "We need to prepare for this to potentially be very bad." And everyone was like equally upset. What does that mean? How do I prepare for something to maybe be very bad?
What does that mean? Like, how can you tell
Does it mean to stock up on food and water and stay indoors?
Listen,
and shun my neighbors? Like, what does that mean?
Listen, this is not a hurricane where you can tell me to go buy some bread, eggs, and milk. This is a...
Well, it may be if you decide if it gets too dangerous,
don't play mingle. Don't play me.
I mean, if you don't want to just walk into a grocery store, you don't know where people have been traveling.
This is not, and I repeat, this is not a hurricane that I can stay in my house and kind of buckle and just wait for it to kind of fly by. This is you're telling us that this is potentially an epidemic. Okay, well, epidemics, until you give me some definitive answers, is going to cause me to live in fear because when you say epidemic, that means mass something is hitting the earth realm. So you cannot tell me to prepare for the worst because this is not a hurricane. I can't just go buy eggs, milk, and bread and kind of wait it out. I don't know where to go.
Because you claim you don't really do much with egg, milk, and bread. So I don't
exactly.
know what you're gonna do.
Well, I've learned. I'm a meat kind of guy. So you telling me to do that kind of stuff is a bit much. But, you cannot tell us to just kind of slosh it out, which is what in essence they're trying to say. Slosh it out. It'll be okay. No, it won't be okay because I don't know where I can go. I don't know what I should eat. I don't know who I should be around. No, this is not okay.
Yeah.
And then when you say it originates in a particular area with a specific class of people, now you can make me weird them kind of people. So you keep throwing out words like Asian, Chinese. So now
I didn't throw that out. Not you. This was the original document.
That's what I'm saying. But now you make me weary of these kinds of people.
But now we're talking about Seattle. Now we're talking about the United States.
Yeah, but you keep talking about origin, and the origin is. What is it? Wahula? The little place in what is it called?
Oh, that's
the place that is called.
I'm sure you're pronouncing it as well as I could.
I mean, the place that is called. So I mean, you telling me that is like you setting me up for failure, and I don't appreciate it. And this is my life we talking about. I'm not rich yet, so I'm not willing to die on every whim that comes through. So no, I feel some kind of way about it. And there was actually a story that I was reading today that was saying. Now we should avoid certain things. And it was talking about the American people and the fact that people can't afford to miss work because you're saying this can turn into an epidemic. So you telling Americans who are already living foot to mouth that they can't go to work, that's going to become an even bigger problem.
But that's another thing is that people, to the extent that you can, they did advise if you have the luxury of working elsewhere, ask to do that.
Most Americans don't.
Well, I think we may come into a situation where, especially if there's well-documented cases like in the Washington State now, especially in Washington State, employers could end up facing a lot of, I think, legal action for not allowing people to work from home when this is spread, the way that it's spread.
But if I work at McDonald's...
Especially near a place like Seattle, that's the epicenter of a lot of commerce in that state.
If I work at McDonald's,
right.
I can't work at home. What am I going to do? Salt the fries and send them... UPS, I can't work from home. If I work in retail, I can't work from home. That is not a feasible answer for a lot of people. It's just not.
I see.
So
I agree.
No, this is not acceptable.
I completely agree.
And yeah, I don't know.
Let's just hope that there's an answer to this soon.
I don't want hope.
Prayers for the family.
I don't want hope. So Pence. Now we haven't seen you do much. But this is the one time you can prove who you are and what the value that you give to this administration.
No pressure.
Yeah, it's pressure. It's a lot of pressure. We're gonna really see what you made of since you keep hiding in the crevices and just kind of smiling and nodding in the background. Well, now it's time for you to come to the forefront. You have been placed in charge of making sure that this epidemic, quote unquote, those that can't see me, I'm using air quotes, that this epidemic does not turn into an actual epidemic. So let's see what you got, Pence. There you go.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay.
Foolishness. Absolute foolishness.
Let's move on to 2020. There's been
oh, Lord.
Should be more.
Pete dropped out. Okay, look.
Okay, let's take a moment and you explain why you are so devastated about this. I'm very surprised at your level of devastation about this. You were not a Pete Buttigieg fan. You were actually very critical of Pete up until this past week. You stated that you felt that he did not have what it took to go toe-to-toe with Trump. You've been very skeptical of his experience, his presidential experience. I'm very, very surprised that you seem to be almost devastated by this as though he'd been your candidate. I don't understand.
First of all, I don't know why you're surprised by anything I do at this point. You should know I'm very critical of those I'm very critical of those that I secretly admire. The fact that he is a young Caucasian male who is homosexual, and the fact that he got as far that he got, I was critical of him because he couldn't let his guard down for a second. Because everybody can come for your neck, especially when you rose out of the ashes towards the end. So I'm surprised and a little bit disappointed that he threw in the towel because this was a time to actually fight. You had made a significant place in this whole Democratic race, and for you to drop out now when it's literally anybody's game. Yesterday we were saying Bernie Sanders is going to take it hands down. Now that Biden has won South Carolina, now it's like, oh no, Biden, he's not out. He's still in.
Yeah.
Buttigieg, before he became a forerunner, he was still tracking at about number 3. So it was anybody's race. If anybody should have dropped out by now, it should have been Warren.
So let's get into that a little bit, because South Carolina was a very big state, and it was a state that a lot of Democrats were looking at. So far, we've had a total of 22 Democratic dropouts. So we've come a long way with everyone who's left as of right now. Buttigieg was getting a majority of the media coverage for the last couple of weeks. And in South Carolina, which is a different animal, it's not Iowa, it's not New Hampshire. South Carolina has a huge black voting base.
Yes.
And part of what they were talking about as well, especially when it comes to black voters, we're usually talking about folks who are over 40. We're talking about folks who are very family-oriented, sometimes folks who are very socially conservative. Biden swept the black vote. I mean, just completely swept that state. And then he really swept every category with the exception of 2, which I think are worth pointing out. Biden finished first overall. He finished with 61% of the black vote. Sanders came in second overall and with 23% of the black vote. So Sanders got that second big chunk. And he also did really well with 17 to 29-year-olds. This is Sanders. He did the best there, and he did the best with whites without a college degree. Every other category, Biden pretty much trumped those categories. However, Buttigieg did come in, was it 4th or 3rd in South Carolina? No, he was 4th. So to think that there's a field that was at then 8 and you're in the middle and you've been polling so well, I was kind of surprised too. I honestly thought that the media, the momentum he'd had over the last couple of weeks, I really thought that would be enough. Even right now, if you're looking for headlines around Pete, there's actually a lot of articles of like praise and like what's next for Pete. He's not getting that typical little Dear John headline in the New York Times saying so-and-so has dropped out. I mean, he's getting even a lot of media coverage now. So I am kind of surprised. I don't think that the world was quite done, sizing him up and,
Well, maybe the headline that I saw, it said, Pete Buttigieg ends monumental presidency candidacy. So that in itself spoke volumes, and yeah. For him, that was really good because I never felt like Pete was really a very vocal individual compared to everybody else on the stage. But it was like he... Like
during debates and...
Yeah, like what was that thing that I think FDR used to say, talk softly and carry a big stick. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's what he did. He wasn't very brash and he wasn't going to go toe-to-toe. So I honestly, let me be very clear. I did not expect him to win the nomination. But I figured he would at least stay number 3 behind Bernie and Joe. I figured he'd at least be number 3. So that's a little bit why I'm surprised and a little disappointed that he dropped out in essence this early in the actual fight. You stuck around for the preliminaries. We know you swing around and they doing the thing and y'all talking face to face, talking smack. Mm-hmm. But when it was time to actually get in the ring and start throwing punches, you bow out. Which is the same way I felt about Andre Gilliam when he was running for governor of Florida. I felt the same way about him. It's like you did all this, you had the momentum going, then when it's time to actually throw a punch, you lay down. We got to stop doing this.
I think part of it is probably behind the scenes stuff. I mean, he did come in third, excuse me. I think part of it is we're getting closer, right? Yeah. We do need a candidate. There will not be 6 candidates or 4 candidates or 2 candidates. There will be 1 in terms of who's going to be president. So I do think there's a question of, if I'm not realistically going to be the guy, who do I want to be? Do I want to be VP? Do I want a cabinet position? Like, where's my best place? And that's the question that we've been asking about all these guys from for the last year. But at this point, this is when the candidates are starting to ask. We're starting to look inside and say, all right, realistically speaking, where are we going to end up?
And Steyer
do we want to grab... Right, Steyer did drop out as well.
Steyer dropped out as well.
He did. Billionaire Tom Steyer did drop out. He had finished 3rd in South Carolina, which is not bad. I mean, there's 6 folks here. We still have Tulsi Gabbard, the representative from Hawaii. She is still in this race.
Why? Tulsi, look. Now, let's be real. Baby, it's over. Let's just call it a day. No, it wasn't Tulsi. Who's the other female?
We have Amy Klobuchar in Minnesota.
I think she was the one that they did our protest, so she didn't have to cancel one of her.
Yeah. So for context, this is Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar. She was forced to cancel a campaign rally after there were protesters in her home state. This was just yesterday. Protesters were chanting repeatedly for over an hour, calling for justice for Mayan Burrell. This was a black teenager who was sent to prison for life for the shooting of an 11-year-old when she was a county prosecutor. There was over 50 protesters from a number of different groups saying included hey, hey, ho, ho, Klobuchar's got to go, Black Lives Matter, Free Mayan, in reference to Burrell's case. So, she is, outside of her, Kamala, this is something Kamala come up against a lot in terms of being a prosecutor and what your record has been as a prosecutor. Being the prosecutor in a place like California versus Minnesota, I mean, you're going to run into, I think, a lot more in terms of race and racial disparity. But, I mean, there's been plenty of places in Minnesota that have gotten our attention with regard to Black Lives Matter, and St. Paul and Minneapolis included, for several reasons. So it is relevant. It's a shame that she was kind of forced to cancel that rally, but she's not polling but so high. She's one of the folks that if you were going to expect someone to drop out, people did have their eye on Amy dropping out. Yeah.
It'd be her.
Yeah, they did. They did for sure. So right now the field's half male, half female. Bloomberg is still in the race. Bloomberg will be on the ballot for the first time coming up. Tomorrow is Super Tuesday. So there are 14 states, including American Samoa, that will have their presidential primary tomorrow on March 3rd. And there are more than a third of all the delegates are up for grabs in this very week. So California, Texas, those are big states. Those delegates are up for grabs again, which is why when you're partly saying it's anybody's game. Who knows how many Pete could have picked up in like a California or a Texas? We don't know that. But yeah, 14 states, not Georgia, but a lot of states. Bernie has done well in the polls in those two places. He's done the best in California and he's done great in Texas. But the fact that Biden came out of South Carolina so well.
Well, you got to know. I'm from South Carolina.
Yeah.
So South Carolina is going to want good old fashioned down home. What can you do specifically for me as an individual? So things that really are not
versus like big reformative change.
Exactly. They don't like. I'm from a small town called Hampton Farmville, South Carolina. Shouts out to Hampton Farmville. It's a small place, so criminal reform stuff like that. It's not really near and dear to them. It's more about industrialization, especially for those towns because a lot of those things have left. Industrialization, minimum wage, particularly minimum wage. Things like those kinds of conversations are going to be more near and dear. So those are the things those kind of places in South Carolina are listening for. They're not listening for criminal reform and all that other stuff. Minimum wage, are we doing it or are we not? Because a lot of them do work for, small places and things of that magnitude. So, they want to know, are we doing this minimum wage thing? When is it going to happen? Can you do it? Healthcare, what does that mean? Are you going to force these small employers to do it? These are the kind of conversations that they care about. So I already knew a lot of these candidates were not going to get any traction in South Carolina because I know what you stand on. And a lot of that stuff is not what down-home country folk who are on farms or running a small business, virtually a small business, are concerned about. So I already knew a lot of them were in trouble. So I knew it was going to come down to Bernie and Joe.
Yeah.
And honestly, with Joe, it's less about his ideologies and it's more about the nostalgia of Obama, honestly, if we're real about it. It's more about the nostalgia in these kind of areas. Nobody really having a conversation about what Joe Biden stands for. It's we loved Obama. And, anything that's going to bring us in remembrance of Obama, we're more inclined to go with. So Joe is that guy.
Yeah, I hear that.
Bernie would get the traction because people were like, oh, minimum wage, what you saying? What you got? What you doing? What we doing about that? So,
and I think people still believe that these are the two men who have the best chance, two candidates who have the best chance of beating Trump. They are men as well, though, which I think is kind of... Do people believe that men are... Only a man can defeat Donald Trump is, I think, another question. I think he would say that.
I mean, I look, at this stage... yeah. But I told you how I feel about Elizabeth. And when you start getting into these down-home places, look, in South Carolina, there's still places where women can't preach on a pulpit. Need I say more? So the ideology of putting a female as the president in these small areas and her snatching up all these delegates was never going to happen. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I'm sorry, Tulsi. Are those the only two? Only two women? Amy, I'm sorry. Y'all were never going to win South Carolina. And there are a lot of states that still have those same ideologies that women still can't preach. And that's a big deal. So
yeah, they do think that South Carolina may be a good mirror for Georgia. We're a little bit later down the list. We don't have our presidential primary until the 24th. However, early voting starts today. So early voting has begun. You can actually cast your ballot for the Democratic candidate. It will go through March 20th. It is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. wherever the early voting locations are. The good thing about early voting is you can vote in any location for early voting. So you don't have to be in your specific precinct for early voting.
Oh, thank God.
You can go to Secretary of State website. You can figure out where all the locations are. You can just go if there's one closer to your job, closer to your whatever. You can vote. The only Saturday date will be March 14th. That said, though, once it is, if you miss the deadline, March 20th, you don't vote, then you have to vote in your exact precinct on March 24th. And it's just a presidential preference primary. So that's what's going to be on that ballot. Whether it's a Democratic ticket, Republican ticket, et cetera. On the Republican side, Trump and Weld are the only two that are on that ballot. In 2016, just kind of flashback, Donald Trump won Georgia with 50.77% of the vote, compared to Hillary's 45.64%. Georgia has voted Republican in 8 of the last 9 presidential elections, but Democrats have won at least 45% in the last 3 cycles. One of many reasons why people are saying Georgia is just it's a battleground state, and candidates are spending a lot of time here and a lot of money here.
Well, the question
Tom
becomes,
Steyer included.
We saw a lot of flipping with Stacey Abrams. So places that were red turned blue. So the question is, are they turning back? Where it's really anybody's game with Georgia at this point.
That's very true.
So we saw a lot of flipping and turning and put the thing down, flip it and reverse it when Stacey was doing her thing.
Yeah. I mean, but she's still out there doing.
I mean, at this point, it's just a matter of people need to be real. These candidates need to start being real with themselves. Like you said, can I actually win this nomination? There should be no more of, well, maybe. No, sweetie, no. If you're still polling at some single digits, it's time to rethink your candidacy. Because most of you don't have the money to keep going anyway. Look, let's be real. Most of you don't have the money to keep going anyway. If you really look at your coffers.
So how do you feel about
half empty? They half empty.
Coffers?
Looking at your coffers,
how do you
half
feel
empty.
about Bloomberg right now?
Oh, good Lord. Look, you can't keep a good rich man down. That's how I feel. Meaning, it doesn't matter what his numbers like. He has a coffer full of money. Yeah. So he will keep sending these. I finally got to the point where I turned off all notifications from Bloomberg. I don't want to see nothing else you have to say. I don't have nothing you have to say. Again, I said it once. I'll say it again. He is the epitome of white entitlement. And he's a man with money
but can he
who
beat
try to buy the
Trump?
presidency.
Is he the most if he's the parallel to Trump, then wouldn't that be a good thing from a Democrat's perspective?
Oh, so we're swapping out one millionaire for another one.
From a Democrat's perspective, if all they're concerned about is who can do it, who can do the job, would he not then be both best fit to do the job?
Okay, now look, the focal point is going to change once we actually get a nominee, because then it actually turns into, okay, what does this fool actually believe? What is he really going to stand on now that he's the only person that's talking? What is he really saying? So it's more about that. Now, with Bloomberg, my concern with Bloomberg is people that live in New York, a lot of them don't have nice things to say about him. And it goes beyond the whole stop and frisk thing. A lot of them were just like, when he was in power, it was XYZ. I think I saw an article where the guys that did the Netflix thing that they did the Netflix thing on, I don't know if it was When They See Us or the Five Guys. They did an article and was like, don't be fooled by Bloomberg. He had a hand in a lot of this stuff. Stuff like that really concerns me. People that know you, that when you were in power, that know what it was like under you, are speaking on and have things to say, that's an issue for me. And we're seeing a lot of that coming out now. And, he does little things. I saw on Facebook, he was like, we'll give you a bandana with Bloomberg on it, if you do X, Y, Z. Really? So we really doing that now? Because technically, you bribing us.
I was going to say, are you thinking you feel like you're being bribed, like it's buying the vote?
Technically. Oh, you can get a bandana with Bloomberg on it. Bro, you trying to buy us. Let's be real. Let's be very clear about this.
He's got those past remarks, I think. He's got those past remarks. But I mean, so does Biden, right? Like he went through something while Obama was president, where he used, certain language, and then there's the 3 strikes, and it's the contribution to mass incarceration. There's always kind of a background if you dig deep enough into these people, because they've been in power for a long time, long enough to F up something.
But everybody else has served their time in the public opinion vetting process, meaning Joe has had enough time to explain these things. They've been in this for about 8 to 9 months. They've had enough time to explain these things. We've had time to process it. So we've moved beyond a lot of this stuff. Bloomberg just threw his hat in the ring maybe less than 2 months ago. We don't have time to vet you now. So we're going to have to go off public opinion, people that have been under your power. We don't have time to properly vet you now.
Joe says that y'all need to start focusing on Mike Bloomberg the way y'all focused on me and picked apart my record. That's what Joe has to say.
And honestly, that's what made a lot of them drop out, from the Kamalas to the Corys. They couldn't get through that vetting process of, being under constant scrutiny for some things that you've done in your past. He has not had that time to be properly scrutinized, and we don't have the time to do it at this point. So I don't feel like he should be a viable candidate at this point. I just really don't.
I agree. Over the weekend, it was reported, though, that there were 20 African-American faith leaders at Bloomberg campaign headquarters to release a joint statement that they support. I was going to say forgive, but support Mr. Bloomberg for president. And he released a new initiative over the weekend called Mike for Black America. So everybody's got to have this is what he's doing. He's trying to get it out in front and address all of these issues that, everybody else has spent a year addressing on the campaign trail. And, I don't know if it's going to be a very intelligent tactic or just a very, sad, half-hearted tactic that you came in so late into the race.
I think it's insulting. The fact that
he may feel like it's a clever move. Like I got here late, and then I just so happened to be the first one to get served at the bar. Like who knows? Like,
well, now here's the thing. Now, kudos to his marketing director. because they said we're going to cut out the middleman and we're just going to target these specific groups that we know we need, especially when it came to South Carolina, because South Carolina does have a very big black vote.
That's true.
So marketing-wise, it seems smart. In intellect-wise, it's insulting. The fact that you have catered a campaign and are being blatant about it. Well, the black vote. I'm concerned about the black entrepreneur.
Right.
You're being blatant about it, and it's an insult to those of us who are intellectuals because we know what you're trying to do. And it's an insult. I'm insulted, and it just made it worse for me, so I'm not even considering you for
so you're not
candidacy.
going to buy my Blacks for Mike t-shirt?
Oh.
Blacks for Bloomberg.
If I see anybody wearing a Blacks for Bloomberg shirt, you're getting punched in the chest on sight. Don't be a pawn in people's war. Don't be a pawn in people's war.
That's simple as so.
Like it's just like the idiots that were at the were they with Trump this weekend? I saw something with a bunch of.
There's a Blacks for Trump. It's a common.
Yeah, they were all praying for him and doing stuff. Just look stupid and ignorant. Just stop it, people.
Praying
Just
is
stop
stupid
it.
and ignorant?
No, it was what they were doing. It was a ploy. We should, at this point in the African American game, we should not be allowed to be used as pawns in people's attempt to get what they want. And the fact that people are still doing this, especially these individuals were older.
We're being courted. The vote is being courted.
Yeah, and these were not young people who, just fresh out of college, who were just trying to get somebody promised them some student loan erasures. These are older individuals who should know better. And they sat there and they put their hands on him and they told me they were praying for him and just making these lascivious comments on social media. They look stupid. They look ignorant. I'm tired of seeing it. But the beauty of what we're seeing, people, is the power of politics. This is the power of politics.
That's true.
People become pawns. People, get used. People get moved around like it's a game of chess. Don't allow yourself to be used by individuals who are clearly trying to get what they want, which in this case is the presidential candidacy.
Yeah, you got to ask those hard questions. And what about this? And what about that? And that's true. That's very, very true.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's going to boil down to. And I said it last week. I understand it's income tax season. And a lot of you are blinded. Your ears are closed and your eyes are closed because right now you're trying to spend money and figure out what you're going to do with this nice $7,000 to $8,000 that you're getting. Let me remind you that things that happen are not always a direct cause and effect of the person that presides in the office currently. You don't know where this stuff has come from. You don't know what legislation was passed from the former administration, all that good stuff. So don't be so quick to assume that what you're getting is a direct correlation of who sits in the White House currently. That is not always the case.
That is true.
So I need you to know these things because you may be getting $8,000 income tax return today, but tomorrow the new legislation that come down may cut your food stamps in half. So when you used to get $500 worth of food stamps to feed your kids, and you turn around next month and you only get $200, now you need to make some correlations. I just want to throw that out there.
I think it's a really good point. You got to look at the policies, and you got to be able to keep people to their policies even after they get in office, which is a whole nother thing.
Which, let me say this real quick to my homeboy Craig. He said, "What do I think that Joe's doing?" Specifically, to those that caught the beginning of it, I think that Joe is nostalgia. I can't necessarily say that people hear what Joe stands for. When we talk about places like South Carolina, I think that people are nostalgic for Obama because we like when Obama was in charge, especially in these down home places, because it was something for us to hold on to. The fact that we could show our kids, hey, you can do this. There is a black man as president. You can do this. Joe represents nostalgia. Was second because Bernie talks about minimum wage, which is a big deal for people in small areas because a lot of them are making minimum wage. So if the federal government forces you to take my wage up, I'm okay with that. That will do something for me because I live in a small town and I may be working at a McDonald's or I may be working at a Goodies or I may be working for an entrepreneur who doesn't have a lot of money coming in per se. So I think that's why Bernie resonated with people in small towns like South Carolina.
I think that's true. That's 100% true. Okay. So let's really quickly, I want to segue a little bit to reform. It's a newer organization, like about a year or two old, but I think it's really important. And I'm sure people have also heard some background about, if you follow hip hop or follow culture, like what Meek Mill and Jay-Z are doing together to focus on criminal justice reform. And Van Jones was a very popular name, CNN contributor. So, I joined Reform just a month ago. And Reform was started by artist and rapper Meek Mill because of his own battles with probation when he was violated for technical violations in 2017. He had a wrongful arrest back in 2009, I want to say, for gun and drug charges, and he popped a wheelie in a music video. This is over a decade later, and was found to have violated his probation, was sentenced to 2 to 4 years for popping and wheeling in a video. So that's sincere prison time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what that was for.
Yeah. Probation revocations are no joke. Essentially, you're charged with what would be the equivalent of a whole new crime if you are not somebody who's already under correctional control. It could be that you traveled outside of a certain county or jurisdiction. It could be not meeting a curfew. It could be missing an appointment or changing a phone number, not updating a phone number, email address, etc. All those things are technical violations. So most people, what they don't know is that, especially in the state of Georgia, if you're admitted to prison, 2/3 of the people going to prison every year in the state are going not because they've committed the crime, but because they violated one of those probation requirements. So probation used to be, or supposed to be, kind of a mechanism for reentry and for people to either get on treatment or do community service or pay their debt to society and begin the process of reintegration. But it really serves as a revolving door back into prison 2/3 of the time in this state. So if you've heard the term mass incarceration, that refers to an American phenomenon, that there are over 2 million people that are in jail right now or in prison right now, but there's more than twice that on correctional control. And Georgia uses probation more than any other state in the country.
They slap you anything on probation.
Oh yeah, 4 times
traffic tickets to...
Exactly. We're one of very few states that make it a misdemeanor to have a traffic ticket. It is literally a misdemeanor. So you have a criminal history in this state if you've driven without a suspended license, if you've had an FTA or an expired tag. Misdemeanors also include like driving with failing to dim your headlights or your high beams. Changing lanes without using a turn signal. Those are all misdemeanors in the criminal code.
Seriously?
Yes, actual misdemeanors. So they're so common that I really don't think a lot of Georgians know that they have misdemeanors. But you have a criminal history.
You make me think. I'm like,
if you wanted to work in like a highly regulated industry, if you wanted to be a stockbroker, if you wanted to work in certain insurance or even in medical fields, that would be a barrier for you. But if otherwise, you just haven't run into it. But yeah, you're a misdemeanant.
Has somebody talked about this in legislation? This is obscene.
They are, and it's also very expensive. Georgia also has a phenomenon called pay-only probation, which means that, say you do go to court for a traffic violation and you can't afford to pay that ticket, the judge can place you on probation, which essentially gives you time. It's like a payment plan, but you serve it on probation. So you pay probation fees, a supervision fee. You pay for a payment plan. I'm sure people used to like fees for payment plans. But you're on a level of pay-only probation until you can pay that off.
Oh, my God. I think I've done that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it doubles. Sometimes it can double or triple what you owe. Probation can be anywhere from like $30 a month, $20 a month, $50 a month.
This is obscene.
It is. It's a real revenue generator for the state, but it means that 1 out of every 17 Georgians is on probation or parole. And nationwide, that's like 1 out of every like 55 or more people. Like we dang near everybody on probation or parole.
Clearly that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. So it's insane. It's something that reform wants to work to change, not just the number of people, but the sentences too. Like some people are on probation for 10 years, 15 years. Essentially what's happened so much in the state is that prosecutors have kind of considered themselves working with defendants by not putting them in jail, but by giving them a max, but they just serve it on probation. So like so often for a first offense, whether it's nonviolent, whether it's small or large, depending on how you view the offense, you will get that max time. In most jurisdictions in the state, it's just that you serve it on probation. Most people are very happy to be walking around out and, in some ways free rather than behind bars. And so they would gladly plea and gladly accept that plea. But yeah, they spend 10 years checking in and reporting with the probation officer and, abstaining from things that most of us completely take for granted, like being out past 11 or being out past 10 or...
Okay, I think I actually did that. I didn't know all the terms.
You may have. You may have. And been on probation. And you may be a misdemeanor with a criminal history and I have no idea. But misdemeanor probation is a big revenue generator for the state for sure. Some people, your ticket could be 100 or 200 or 300. But depending on how long it takes you to come up with that, people don't have money like that. You could be paying that off for a year. Or more.
I don't understand how we come up with these things. Especially if you know that people are living foot to mouth as is, and you slap them with a misdemeanor for something as minute as me switching lanes without turning my turn signal, which you would do all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Like,
and in other places, we do consider it very minute. Even the court system, I believe, considers it to be a small thing. Okay, yes, it's a misdemeanor. Charge with it. They treat it like a small thing, but it's really not a small thing depending on where you want to go in your life and what you want to do. It's a huge thing. And not all probation conditions fit your crimes. Some people are on probation and have depending on, it could be a traffic situation that you're in trouble for. Maybe it's not a DUI or whatever, but it could just be, you maybe didn't show up to court, or maybe you have an expired tag or suspended license. The conditions could be anything from like no drinking alcohol to no living with people who have a certain criminal background or criminal history, which could completely displace you depending on who you are and, what family you're born into. So there's a lot of repercussions to this, and how they catch people up on it is what keeps people going to jail, is because it's, once you have violated probation, it's almost kind of like it's almost like starting back from zero. So like if it was considered by that judge to be lenient to put you on probation and not put you in jail, if you violate for some reason, and 10 years gives you a lot of time to violate, then you almost certainly get whatever the max would have been otherwise. It's a very bad thing to violate probation. Yeah, it's a rigmarole.
So what are we doing?
Or as the Ballard says, a jug, basically. So reform is working to change that. Pennsylvania is where it started. That's Meek Mill's place of birth. But Jay-Z's a part of this. Sean Carter's a part of this. Van Jones is the CEO. He's a contributor as well. So there's a lot of as well as Laura Arnold from Arnold Ventures, who you may not be familiar with, but she's very, very smart woman. Arnold Ventures does a lot of work in criminal justice reform. A lot of great people behind the group. What we want to do in Georgia is to do a couple things. We want to cap probation, right? Because we've even talked to even if you listen to the Department of Community Supervision, Commissioner Michael Nail, he will say that after 2 years, probation is almost useless. Like the returns begin to diminish. It is very difficult. If someone hasn't changed their life, or if someone hasn't, reintegrated in a period of a couple of years, they really are either going to go back anyway, or they're done. They don't need to be on it anymore, and we're just collecting fees. So we really want to cap probation, because statistically speaking, after 2 years, there's no reason for somebody to stay on probation. But most people are on probation in Georgia for over 6 years just because of fines and fees. They just cannot pay. You have to pay down all your fines and fees to be considered done with your sentence. So it's the financial piece that keeps all these Georgians on the hook, even after they've, done whatever community service or whatever else they were supposed to do to make it up to the state. So we want to cap probation, and we want that to include the fact that we can't continue to fine and fee and surcharge folks into staying on probation. So we want to quit the financial trap as well.
Well, we had a question. So the question becomes, are we putting people on probation as a deterrent for bad behavior? Because me forgetting to turn on my signal light, is that really bad behavior?
That's the question.
Or are we just doing it just to get money? Because it's like you said, it's a big revenue generator.
I guess it depends on who you ask, I guess. It is a huge revenue generator, though. And
who we asking?
Even the pay-only probation that I was telling you about, when the only thing you're on probation for is to pay your fines and fees, there's a fee for that. And there's fee for supervision that you have to pay, even though you're not being supervised. So even if you don't have like a PO, like I'm sure you didn't, you still have to pay a supervision fee. It's part of your little court cost. If you look down in your ticket, there's court costs, there's supervision fees. Sometimes there's even surcharges if you pay by credit card, et cetera. So it gets very expensive. It is a revenue generator. They can't deny that. We use private probation companies. It's a $40 million industry in Georgia. So you can't say that there's no profit motive. If you are trying to, at least I don't believe you can, honestly.
This sounds like it's something I need to get into. I'm just saying. I mean, look, if I can be on the other side of it, benefiting
the other side of it.
If I can be on the other side of it,
I think the other side of it is, if you have enough money, then you don't care.
Facts. So
if you're a top 5% income earner, oh well, I'm sure you'll drive recklessly, because I'm sure you'll just bond out. I'm sure you don't care how much you have to pay. You won't end up on a payment plan because you'll just pay whatever you have to pay when you go to court, or you won't go to court because you can hire an attorney and the attorney will go to court. It's the low income people that it just traps. And most people on probation are making under $20K a year, which is federal poverty level if you have kids. So it's expensive. It's crippling. It's a crippling amount of money. I know folks paying $300, $500 a month on probation.
I just don't understand. These laws are supposed to protect. So what are we doing with them? Like, I just don't understand. What are we doing with them?
We are trying so hard, I believe, and I'm saying this like with so much generosity, to keep everyone safe, that we have criminalized and almost crippled anything less than perfect behavior, anything less than just ideal behavior. And there are people, especially if you think about all the attorneys who used to dominate the legislature, most legislators used to be attorneys, now that's kind of changing, but you got DAs, you've got judges, you've got all these folks advocating for these laws. These are people who do not represent a majority of the people on probation, because they have a law degree. Most people on probation, most people in prison or involved with the justice system don't have a high school degree, or have a high school degree at most. So you're talking about a group of people who I genuinely believe have read the law up and down, like we've read our Bibles up and down. And to also have a means, at least a financial income, to avoid ever having suffered the devastations that comes along with not being able to pay your fines and fees. Up until about a year ago, fines and fees alone could put you back in jail. That has changed, fortunately. So if you are behind on your fines and fees, You won't go back to jail if you can prove you've been trying to pay. However, they will continue to add up, and your probation can be what's called tolled. So if you fall too far behind, your probation officer can toll your probation, which basically just suspends it. So it's like, if say you had 5 years and maybe you're 2 years and you start falling behind, they can toll your probation until you catch up, which means like you've got another 3 to go, even if it took you a year to catch up. So there are a lot of ways that they can penalize folks who are low income, and that's who it impacts.
Doesn't everything? So, everything trickles back down.
Everything's harder if you're poor. Yeah, that's true. Everything is harder.
And God,
being
poor
sick,
is
Lord.
Okay, so last week I did a career day at an elementary school.
I saw. Ricardo loves the kid.
Oh my God. And I remember one of the speakers was talking. She was like, "Yeah, in my career, you can start with $50,000." And the kids went, "Ooh, $50,000!" And me and the teacher in the back was like, "These poor kids, they just don't know that $50,000 by the time they become adults will be poverty."
Store all year.
Exactly. Like by the time they become adults, that's gonna be poverty. Like that's literally gonna be poverty by the time they become adults. Heaven forbid they have kids. But it was so cute. Shouts out to Campbell Elementary. I was there for a career day. It was amazing.
So can you share any of the other nuggets that you shared with the kids?
I think I learned how animated I really am.
Yeah.
Because with kids, and there were different sides. We went through 6 groups, so it was like, man. Oh my God. By the first 2, I was like, day. Jesus, are we done? She was like, no, you still got 4 more groups. What, ma'am? What? Woo. And the kids are, again, shouts out to Campbell, because I think their principal and their assistant principal are both African American females.
Oh, awesome.
And when we got there, from the time we got there to the time we left, I saw nothing but the spirit of excellence. They had the junior beta club there to meet us. They were our little guides. I had a little Spanish guy. I can't remember his name because I'm terrible with names. But he was the most polite kid I've ever seen in my life. He was like, "How are you doing today? Wow. What's your name?" It was Mr. Rice. I mean, he was like, "Okay, well, we're going to move now." It was amazing. I was blown away. Shouts out to Campbell. You guys are doing an amazing job. But the funniest thing is you never know who's paying attention. Mm-hmm. So Teacher Davis, who was the homeroom guy that I went in, African-American teacher, a quieter teacher than I've met, wasn't rude by any stretch, very accommodating. But he kind of did his thing, and he went to the back of the class when I was talking. So I was like, okay, well, he's doing what he's doing. He probably wants a break.
Right.
And when we were done, I was like, they told us we couldn't take pictures because you would need a photo release to take the kids' faces. So I was like, okay, well, I don't have time to try to figure out to take pictures of the back of their heads. I'm in the front of the classroom. But lo and behold, I was playing around on Twitter, and Teacher Davis had actually put a picture of me. That was a picture I actually got, the one picture I got. And he was like, "Thank you," and he tagged the principals and stuff. He was like, "We're so glad that Ricardo came." I was like, "Wow, you never know who's paying attention."
Yeah.
But it was good. I was telling the kids, most of my stuff is online, so it was easy. I didn't have to put together a presentation. I showed them both my YouTube channels, and I got smart. So the first video that I showed them was Michael Jai White. When I interviewed him, I was like, "Okay, how many of you guys know Spawn?" Of course, most of them didn't because it was in '97-ish. But I said, "How many of you have seen Tyler Perry's Why Did I Get Married?" Ooh, I was like, "Remember Marcus?" They was like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's Marcus." And we kind of went from there. And the beauty of it is there'll always be kids that want to be entertainers.
Yeah, that's true.
Every class had a rapper or a singer. Yeah. So I was like, okay, are you ready to rap on spot? Well, yeah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, so we're going to do a mock red carpet. So I had them sit in front of me, and I was like, okay, so we just finished doing the BET Awards. I have, what's your stage name? Young Jeezy. We have Young Jeezy here. He just blazed the stage. So tell us about your first album. And we kind of did this thing. So I was able to get through it and have fun with them. But you know me, I thought that on the spot. Because they gave us a sheet, but when the kids get in, you're just like, they're not gonna pay attention if I do it this way.
No.
So it was good, and they had a good time. So it was nice.
I see you as a teacher. That's why I guess I feel like that's so
Honestly, that was what I want to be when I grew up. I remember as a kid putting all the stuffed animals. We had a lot of them between me and my sisters. I would put them all out, and I would have the summer school books with the actual teacher's editions, and I would actually be teaching the bears and stuff. I did it for the longest. So my passion has always been teaching, which is why I find other ways to do it. The internship program, doing career days, because it's a passion of mine is to teach on some level. So yeah, it's what I do. In entertainment, I'm telling you, it was crazy.
That's just some stuff. Don't most people air guitar singing to a hairbrush? No.
I've done that too. It's our thing. In entertainment news, Meg Thee Stallion is having issues because everybody was like, "Where's the new music?" She can't release music because she's having a battle with her label 1501, and apparently because I'm trying to understand the dynamics of this. She apparently is now signed to Rockefeller with Jay-Z in Rock Nation. In signing with Roc Nation, I guess she realized what her contract should be. So they started pointing out what's in her contract with 1501 and was like, you're supposed to be getting XYZ. So apparently she went to 1501 and asked them, she just made some inquiries. And they took that as, oh, you're trying to leave. So now she's in battle, and she took to Instagram and was Twitter and was telling everybody, they won't let me out of we're having this whole debacle, and now they basically won't let her release music, which is kind of reminiscent of the debacle that Lil Wayne had with Birdman when he couldn't get music released and all these good things. I chose this story because I was really concerned that we're still having these issues. With all the unsongs that we've done on artists like TLC, Toni Braxton, who have talked about how they ended up in bankruptcy, who have talked about bad contracts, why are we still going through this? I don't understand. I don't get it. And, Meg was saying, hey, I signed this contract when I was 20. I didn't really know what I was signing. Why are we still going through this? We've seen all these unsongs. We've seen people tell their stories. They're still doing it. I just watched the unsung on Drew Hill the other day, which was amazing. God, I did not know they went through all that stuff. But why are we still going through this at this point in time? Are there just not enough entertainment lawyers? Are there just not enough accessible entertainment lawyers? It
could be. So Isaac Hayes III, her producer was saying that the problem with these new artists is that they always want to renegotiate their contracts before they put out their first album. You wait until after you start getting popping and let other artists get into your head is what he was saying. I don't know. I think this is part of the reason, though, why there's so many new artists that are just independent now, though. I mean, I think that has a lot to do with it. Like artists that'll sign a distribution deal, like, okay, help me get my stuff out and I'll do X, but that's very different than any sort of like a label deal. Or
FYI, the CEO and founder is Carl Crawford of 1501 Entertainment. I think he's a former something, athlete or something. I think he's a baseball player. I knew he was some kind of former athlete, so that's who she's with. Okay. What was my thought? I just forgot my thought. Oh, but that is getting ready to change because independent artists rely heavily on things like Instagram, Facebook, and stuff. Well, Instagram really is going through with this taking away likes stuff. It's a thing now. That's going to affect their business because one of my friends who was actually a guest on the TV, actually she was in the studio too. I don't think you were here. Divine, who was on Ready to Love, was fussing about it on Facebook, and she was saying she upgraded her Instagram account and now she can't see her likes or anything. Yeah. And she was like, it's a big deal because they were going back and forth, her and some of the
shows. She can't see her likes?
She can't see her likes, and nobody can. And she
I know nobody can, but you can't?
She said she can't either. And it was a thing because, the trolls were like, oh, you're just vain. And, you just want to see how many people like yourself. And she was like, no, it's a business for a lot of people, especially these infusers, because these companies are used to seeing, oh, they're getting 1,500 likes on this. So, we keep working with them. Now that nobody will be able to see them, they're going to probably start losing money because it's like, okay, well, we don't know how many people actually watch this. We don't know the impressions and stuff that you're getting now because we can't see these likes anymore. So that's going to change the game for independent artists as well, because now it's going to be, okay, well, we don't know what you're actually doing. We don't know the numbers that you have. We don't know the correspondence that you're having with these individuals. How do we know?
I could see that because remember back in the day, it used to be like a followers game. Like it was just how many followers you have. And then it was like, well, engagement, you could be much smaller. But the engagement is there and all of that. And I'm sure that, that will impact those who are lower. Lower meaning still like 20K, 50K followers, stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's
I really hope that's not the case because I love the new emerging industry around talent scouting for those folks, like for the micro influencers. I think that's so fascinating to me. Like there's folks that specifically target people with 20K or 10K followers or 50K followers and try to work with brands to help you find what influencers you should be using. And they rely on engagement and they have actual, organic engagement. So.
Well, I'm just, it's, again, I chose that story because I was like, I didn't think this was still a thing. And Meg's, for all intents and purposes, has become a major force to be reckoned with. So the fact that we're still going through this, that, these, and I'll say kids, because in essence they are kids, that these kids don't know what to look for in a contract. Because I had a kid, when I had my nonprofit, he let me look at a contract, which I'm not an entertainment lawyer, but I understand contracts. And I told him, I said, there's an exclusionary clause in this contract you are not going to like. Meaning, for 3 years, you cannot release music outside of them.
Right.
He didn't listen. And, in those 3 years, he decided to part ways with them. And he went to release them. He got a cease and desist order.
Kind of like a non-compete for,
And he was like, well, what does this mean? I told you before you did this, that's what that clause meant. And you thought I was playing around with it. When
kids get young and hungry and they're willing to sign, especially if you've been out here 10 years, 12 years, you just, And they were talking about it's very. I understand the temptation. Is what I'm saying. I understand it.
Well, it just sucks because it's a catch-22. Because when you really become who you think you're gonna be, bam, it's okay, cease and desist, bro. You can't go any higher than this without me tagging on your coattail.
Say JoJo. Case in point, her record label went down so they didn't even have an office anymore, operating out of somebody's basement, but she still couldn't release any music. Yeah.
Wait, who?
JoJo.
The white girl JoJo?
Yes.
Really? That's what happened to her?
Yes, the agility queen. Yes.
Nobody ever said what. She just got.
Well, she's come back out now. She's got new music now.
Well, yeah,
and she's been going on a tour, letting everybody know what's been going on.
PJ Morton, which I love. Say something or something. It's beautiful, beautiful song. In our last story, because we got to get out of here. In the last story, Flava Flav and Public Enemy have been in the spotlight because they have apparently Public Enemy. Well, it's not even Public Enemy. Chuck D. I don't even know how they pulled this off. Chuck D and the other members, I don't know how many that is exactly, of Public Enemy were set to do be on the campaign trail and perform at a Bernie Sanders event. Flava Flav came out and said, I do not endorse Bernie Sanders, and I didn't know anything about this. It's not Public Enemy. It's Chuck D. So Chuck D and the other members of Public Enemy said, that's cool. We're going to dispel Flava Flav from Public Enemy. So Flava Flav is no longer in Public Enemy. All of this over this whole Public Enemy and Bernie Sanders debacle. And Chuck D actually made a statement and said that Flava Flav doesn't know the difference between Barry Sanders and Bernie Sanders. Right. And I was like, wow, he really said that.
So his lawyer accused the campaign of not using unauthorized images, likeness, and trademark clock to promote his rallies.
And he sent a cease and desist. These cease and desists are serious. He sent a cease and desist to the Bernie Sanders campaign and was like, no, this is not Public Enemy.
I get that, though. I do.
Don't you think this is a conversation they should have had before they took the engagement? It's Public Enemy as a whole. I didn't even know it was like a Chuck D and Public Enemy versus a Flava Flav. I thought they were a unit. So I was actually surprised that this happened.
But I can understand how that, because it's a big deal. Like there's a lot of musicians don't want politicians using their stuff. Like people have sent Trump a million cease and desist letters. Don't play my stuff at your rally.
Yeah, but let's remember the history of Public Enemy. They are a socioeconomic group. They always have been.
Yeah, so but there's so many Democratic candidates that they still. I mean, for Bernie to use it in particular, it's not like the DNC asked to use it for a whole debate.
Yeah, but he didn't just use it all willy-nilly. He had the authorization of Chuck D, which actually the question really becomes who owns the rights to the name Public Enemy. That's really what this is going to boil down to, because
apparently his voice is not sufficient to express the political views for Public Enemy. That's what there is no Public Enemy without Flava Flav, end quote, says the letter. Would you agree? There's no Public Enemy without Flava Flav?
No, I won't agree with that. Because if you ask the newer generation, most of them don't even know that he's in a group called Public Enemy. They know him from Flavor of Love. Let's be real.
Okay, but does that same generation know Public Enemy if they don't know Flavor Flav? Do you know what I'm saying? Like if they know him from Flavor of Love, what would they know Chuck D from? What would they know Lord Jahi from?
Chuck D can be with Public Enemy because they don't really know who he is anyway. But they do know Flavor Flav because Flavor Flav has been a reality star for the last 10 years. So they know who Flavor Flav is. They just want to affiliate him with Public Enemy because most of them don't know that. It's just like with Candy Burris. Most of them did not know that Candy Burris was a part of a group called Escape. This young generation. They didn't know that. They know her as an Atlanta housewife. It wasn't until Escape came back out that everybody was like, wait. She sings in a group? She sings? Most people didn't know that. This younger generation.
They may not, but I also think they would side with her, and if she is a part of this, over the other members of that group. It's possible. I understand the sentiment, I guess. I just get it. Because
I
politics
get it too.
Is serious
I just didn't think that it would separate a group especially a social economic group that has been at the forefront of changing the narrative of African Americans and African American men.
True.
I did not think that politics would be the thing that divides them.
It's just crazy to hear him say, we thank him for his years of service and wish him well, like he's an employee of a corporation.
Apparently there's no beef between the two of them because Chuck D was saying this has been an ongoing thing. This was just the last straw. Oh. So it's been a thing. This didn't just this wasn't the thing that divided them. This was just the last straw. Which I get. Flava Flav has been acting a fool for the last 10 years.
Excuse me?
He's been showing his behind.
Maybe I forgot.
Flavor of Love with the divisiveness.
That was 20 years ago, wasn't it? Here's the thing. That was one of the first most authentic romantic contest reality. Yes,
you do realize
reality TV shows that there's ever been. Yes, but that was one of the first ones that I feel like as an audience we watched and got invested in. And then we thought, man, this man, human being, can get any kind of woman he wants. And he really is looking for the right one. It was very captivating for me.
Please.
I'm still rooting for Tiffany Pollard to help you find what you're looking for.
Girl. Oh my God. Okay, on that note, we're done because All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have a guest with us, a very special guest, which I'm excited about. So all you spiritual people, this next show is going to be for you because we have an amazing woman of God that's going to be hitting the studios in a few minutes. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to welcome Dr. LaTanya Powers to the show.
You're listening to the Leadership Blend podcast.
I'm ready.
On the Thinking Out Loud Network. Check out the Thinking Out Loud Network at thinkingoutloudnetwork.com.